Record to the cloud. Try it again. So tech assignment, baseball online. I'm just going to make sure it's the right one. Okay, good. So again, just a quick breakdown on this. We have the scoring sheet. I attached the links for that. But you have your Google Sheets. You've been working with that at least somewhat throughout the semester. And the idea here is to play the game of baseball. There was a couple of quirks to the whole process, but it's definitely very manageable if you're careful. It just takes a little time. Right? So these were the percentages of first base, second base, and so on related to that season that I investigated and collected data related to. And from that, we come up with the simulation. So anything in the interval of 1 to 175 represents a single. Anything in the 176 to 229 represents a double, right? And so on, right? So what we can do here, if we go to the actual scoring sheet, you gotta click and then click again. You get to the scoring sheet. Now, you're not going to have permission to edit this one because this is mine. If you edit this one, then I don't have it to link up to everybody else anymore. So what you do is you go to File and make a copy, and you'll see that it has an option to retitle it. So here you title it with your last name or something, just to call it your own, and hit OK. So now you have your own version of this file. All right. So you don't need mine anymore. You have your own. All right. So you're playing the game based off of the rules of the game. All right. So that's the information you need. So all of this stuff is relevant, but we also need a list of random numbers. All right. So what I recommended is that we do the random integers. Let me so you do the random integers, and maybe create a list, random and so equals rand between, and then we want the values from, if you just refer to it, you see we're going from 1 to 1,000. All right. So from 1 to 1,000 is where the magic's happening. So get that value there. And then we want to reproduce that down the line. All right. So I'm in cell 2, so I want to go to cell 501. So drag and drop, overshot the man. So once you get to 501, lock it in by just releasing. But then, as you know, when it comes to random integers, anytime you make a change in the spreadsheet, it changes the random integers. So at this point, what you probably want to do is just a quick copy and then paste. But you want to paste special, all right? So paste the values only, all right? So it's just taking the numbers from that first iteration and creating a new list, but these won't change. So every time I change something here, type in a value and then it changes the list, but this other list here is not going to change. All right, so these are the random integers, but then maybe you call this one my values. All right. Do you need 500 of them? No, I hope not. All right. What you should need is a bunch of them, but I figured going out to 500 random values would be substantial enough so that you would have, you wouldn't have to go back and regenerate more information. All right. Now, personally, I like to do a little color coding. nothing too crazy. I'm not that creative, but what I like to do is at least get a little color coding on it, or at least distinguish it in some capacity so that I don't accidentally look at the wrong column. All right. So that's a personal thing. I don't know that you necessarily want to wipe out this information, because if you screw up something here and you need to start over, at least you have some random integers. Right? Later on, if you want to clear it out after you finish the assignment, I suppose you could do that. But for now, I would say just leave it be. All right. So at this point, what you're doing is you're just cross-referencing with the list of values here. So I'm just going to pull this out and do a little split screen so I can refer to it. All right. So see. Kind of give myself a little bit more room here. Maybe minimize, not minimize, wrong word. I guess I can get rid of this column here. Just so I just want to be able to see it all in one window. I guess I'm going to be scrolling some. All right, well, anyway, my first entry is 361. So then I look at my list of values from the tech assignment, and I see that 361, and I won't do this for every one of them, but what I'll do is I'll do a copy paste job here. Oh, I'm on a PC, Control C. All right. So from the assignment, 361 falls in this interval, 334 to 420. It's a base on balls. The symbol is BB. Consecutive players advanced one base. All right. So my first team, you call the team whatever you want. Billy Goats, I guess. And the ninnies. I don't know. That is first two thoughts that came to my head. Probably not the most impressive. But what that's telling me is that we got a base on balls, so a BB for the first outcome. All right, did not record any outs, did not record any runs. So I'm still in my first out. All right. So that's telling me that I'm on first base here. All right. So I got a player on first base. Now, what happens in the next trial will dictate what happens to that player that's on first base. All right. So my next trial, 225. So 225 is a double. Each player advances two bases. I keep hitting command. Copy.
If you want, check the text blurb and copy paste that into the cell next to, into the third row, and it will automatically spit out what the plays are.
Oh.
You can copy that into
conditionals.
Copy that into K3. I mean, I don't figure this is like ruining the assignment for anyone. It just stops you from.
No. So, all right, let me just make sure I understand. So you have if J3, so you created the intervals.
Mm-hmm. Take it and put it into K3. I put it
into K3. Okay, so then
control. That's K2.
Oh.
K3, yep. Jump into 3, otherwise you'll be what off.
Oh, what did I do? Oh, in 3.
Yeah, and then you can drag it up and down.
Gotcha. All right, let me wipe this out so I can have it. Copy.
Control V. Yep, that should work. Oh,
no. Not that. I don't know why I did that. Control V.
Yeah, and now you can drag that column.
I'll drag it up in a sec.
It should work. Let's see. Oh no, did I break it?
Well, it's 491. 491 should have been a ground ball out.
Oh, I see. HBP is L. I have a typo. 1 second. I was just copying the word J. I left an L in there.
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
You see that L3 sneaking in there?
Yeah.
You change him to a change him to a J. That was my bad. I just changed it to match your column titles.
Gotcha. So let me see.
The HB right before HBP. I open that guy up a little.
I made this so freaking tiny that I can't see a damn thing now.
Yeah. Oh, you got it. I think.
Yeah, it was right there, but it's like off my screen. So.
Here, I just copied it again. The block.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll just grab it. Oh, actually, I think I can get it here.
L3 there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Gotcha. Oh, J. All right. So then.
Try a little sample first, maybe, before dragging all the way down. Thanks.
Going for the downs here.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, looks good. Very nice. Oh, undo. I accidentally dragged it up. That's what I wanted to do. This one can go away. Okay.
There you go. And now you can play the
Thank
game.
you. And I will edit the original file with this so that other folks can have it. Yeah, so a double with the little cross reference there. So a 2B. Then after that, we had an error, right? So if you're just kind of following the progression, the man on first went to third after the double. So we have man on second and third. Now the error is going to allow everybody to advance one base. So the man on third is going to score. And now we have a man on first and a man on third. All right. So we're 3 outcomes in, but then we have a strikeout. All right. So, okay. All right. So when we went over this the first time, we definitely had a fewer set of outcomes for the first out. But basically, you want to keep going through the process until you've arrived at an out in some capacity for that last, in order to advance to the next out. All right. And we work in 3 sets of outs. All right. So if you want to kind of color code it, I was recommending that before in some way, shape, or form. It's up to you, just to kind of remind yourself what's happened. That's probably a good idea. All right. But also, like when I do this on my own, because believe it or not, I do this for fun. I do keep the actual piece of paper with the baseball diamond, because I'm like, all right, wait, who's where again? And I use a couple of coins to kind of represent the runners. So we had a base on balls, which went to third, which eventually scored. The double went to third. So now we're first and third with a strikeout. Now the ground ball out, actually, since there was a man on first, so the ground ball out, batter is out, player on first is out. So that's the simulation of a double play. So I have a ground ball out, no runs scored, but that's the inning. All right, because 2 outs are recorded, and you could put like a little dash in there to indicate that. All right, so no additional run is recorded. The score now is 1-0 going into the bottom of the first. All right. And like I said, just a little color coding along the way. So bottom of the first, right off of the bang, a home run. Then a single. All right. Then a strikeout. So 1 run, home run is, going all the way around, getting a score. But then after that, a person got to first base. So there's 1 run in. By the time there was an out, there was still 1 man on and 1 run in, 1 run scored. All right. I guess yellow is probably not a good idea. So let me do that light blue there. Right. But then you could see another ground ball out. That's how it's pretty frequent that happens. So GBO, or GBO, because there's a man on first, very important, ground ball out, batter is out, player on first is out. We already had one out in, no additional runs scored, 2 outs recorded in that single play. That's your double play. We're now at the bottom of the first. Yeah, I know. Oh, well, the issue is I know nothing about soccer. So there you go. Oh, except, you know, they call it football everywhere else. And it involves kicking a ball into a net. That's all I got, unfortunately. Oh, and it's the most popular sport in the world, yet not here for some reason. Although I think it probably is here, just by the numbers. All right. So now the first inning is recorded, completed, I should say. So now we move on to the second inning. All right. So we have an error, man on first base, and then a single and then a strikeout. So E, 1B, K. No runs scored, but you do have a man on first and a man on second. So the error got the batter to first base. The single, the 1B, got the next batter to first base, which forced the person that was on first base over to second base. So you have 2 men on, but then the third batter up struck out, so no runs recorded. But there's still two batters on base, which is good. However, now we got that dreaded double play, right? The GBO keeps coming up, all right? So the ground ball out, that's how frequent that play happens in baseball. Since there's a man on first base, they're able to turn that double play and the inning is over. Even though you had 2 men on base, none of them were able to come around and score. All right. So the score is still 1-1 after 1.5 innings. All right. So an error and a strikeout. All right. So every line ends with an out. All right. So error and a strikeout. No runs. Then an MFO. That's a medium fly out. The batter is out, but the runners cannot advance. All right. So you still have a person on first base, but now there's 2 outs. So now we're up to the next outcome, which is the 45 corresponds to a single, a 1B. All right. You had a man on first base. That person on first base is now going to move to second base. All right. And the batter is going to first base. So we got a 1B. But then right after that, we get another 1B. All right. So we're up to this outcome. So 2 1Bs in a row. So now all 3 bases are occupied. Bases are loaded is what they say if you're not familiar with that. All right. So we have 1B. Oh, typed it in the wrong place. Control Z. So then after that, so the bases are now loaded. Bases are loaded. Next up is a 2B, which means every runner on base will advance 2 bases. All right. So I'll go down to my diagram here. We had, let me scroll over. We had a person on the first base, second base, and third base. All right. Every runner is going to advance 2 bases. All right. So the person on third base is going to score. So that's a run. The person on second base is going to score. That's another run. The person on first base is now going to go to third. And the person that was at home, the person that was batting, is now on second. All right. So we have a man on second and third, but 2 runs are in. 2 runs have scored. All right. So I'm going to put the 2 here with the possibility that might change. All right. So all of these outcomes have taken place. Next up is the base on balls. Consecutive players advance one base, right? That's a force, all right? So that only happens if one movement forces somebody else to move up, all right? So since there are two players on second base and third base, and there's nobody on first base going into this outcome, then when that person gets on base with the walk, with the base on balls, they occupy that first base, but the other runners do not advance, right? Because it's not a consecutive movement, right? If there was a person on first base, the act of the batter moving to first would force that player to move off of first and onto second, all right? So we now have bases loaded after these outcomes, but then right after that is a strikeout, right? So the inning comes to an end. So we have a base on balls followed by a K. So that inning is over. And now you can see the cumulative score. We have 1 run from the first inning, 2 runs from the second inning, a total of 3 runs for the Ninnies, and only 1 run for the Billy Goats. So far after 2 innings, the Ninnies are winning by a score of 3-1. All right. So we carry out this process until you've completed 9 innings. All right. And so once you've done that, that's when you answer the follow-up questions. But you can see, and I'll bring that back into the frame here so you can see what I'm talking about. I changed it up. Explain whether there is a significant difference between the given percentages and the percentages you've discovered. All right. So table 2, if I can find it. I'm sorry. Page 2 of this spreadsheet. I'm just going to scroll up a little bit on sheet 2. I put all the 2008 data, and so you'd put all your data in there, right? So this part is a little cumbersome, but manageable. So what you would have to do is count up the total number of outcomes that you've had. So after you've finished going through all these outcomes, you'll see a total number of possibilities. Like maybe you used 100 outcomes, maybe you only used 50 outcomes, maybe you used 30 outcomes, maybe you used all 500 outcomes, hopefully not, right? Of those outcomes that you used, some of them are going to be 1Bs, some of them are going to be Es, some of them are going to be HRs, some of them are going to be GBOs. So you're going to count up the number of GBOs, for example, and divide that by the total number of trials that you used in your game, all right? And that would give you the percentage for GBO, right? And you do the same for each other thing. And then all I'm asking you to do is make some observations to see how far your data was away from the year average for 2008, right? So once you come up with that information, which will all be in your spreadsheet, I'm just asking you, do you think there's a significant difference in the two sets of data, 2008 data versus your own data? Why do you think that might be the case? You know, if you don't know a lot about baseball, then your answer is not going to be very baseball centric, but you could still give a meaningful answer based on the statistics. All right. Give 2 other real life instances where this technique may be applied. I'm talking about cases, well, somebody said soccer. All right. Well, why didn't we do this with soccer? Well, you could have. That's an instance. You could do this with soccer, but give me something a little bit more than you can do the same thing with soccer. Thoroughly explain your reasoning behind these choices. Well, talk about some of the percentages that come into soccer. Like, for example, save, I don't know if they call them saves in soccer, but they call them that in hockey. Like save percentages by the goalie or the goaltender. You know, like how many shots on goal and how many that individual is able to block versus how many went in. You know, that's a percentage that works its way into soccer. So find some percentages, other percentages that belong in soccer and talk about those a little bit. Maybe you don't like the sports at all, right? So maybe you talk about TV ratings. Those are percentages, you know, in a fashion. or after a fashion. So, talk about that kind of stuff. And then number 4, a researcher wished to use this technique to determine whether the political leanings of Americans have changed since the year 2000. Discuss the pros and cons of using this technique, little typo there for somebody, to draw a meaningful conclusion, right? So, what are some percentages that come into political leanings of Americans over the past 20 years? See, they want to use this technique. Does this technique make sense for that? Right. So, that's a very open-ended question, and you have a lot of room to kind of explore your thinking on that. But that one you shouldn't be really afraid of. It's really carrying out the process of playing the game. But what I wanted you to get from this, aside from the fact that the ANOVA part didn't really make sense, it was more so that I was looking for you to take this concept of baseball, which I love, but not everybody else does, and say, okay, well, yeah, we did your baseball thing. Here's what I would use this technique for. That's what I'm looking for there. All right, so let me take a look at the chat, see what's going on there. Yes. When is this? Originally, it's scheduled to be due on Wednesday, but I don't really have a need to have it by Wednesday. It's just I figured if we're taking the test on Monday, then having this done on Wednesday is just one less thing to be on your plate, when you're prepping for that test. So if you need more time, that's fine, because again, this took a little longer in terms of the explanation than I originally intended, through nobody's fault but mine. So take as much. Well, I don't want to say that. I don't want to finish that sentence. If you need a few more days beyond Wednesday, that's fine. All right. So I'll just leave it at that. All right. So let me stop this recording.